first experienced COIL through my environmental science class with Dr. Wong. And so the project that we had done was a series of presentations which we exchanged with each other between the American and Japanese students on the subject of nuclear energy. Because of the semi-recent disaster in Japan in 2011, the attitudes and feelings towards nuclear energy are very different in Japan and the United States. So the idea there was to, coming from different perspectives, to share sort of the opinions and aspects of nuclear energy and how do a little bit of original research on what the perceptions and attitudes and the histories of nuclear energy were. And so the accumulation of this project was that we both throughout the semester, both classes worked on a presentation, and at the end we both presented to each other to provide our different perspectives. There was a period for questions and answers, and that was basically how it went. We did have interaction across the semester at various points as well. That was also interesting. And that's a pretty brief overview of my experience with COIL.
Yeah, mine was fairly similar, except instead of taking environmental science, I did a class called Individual State and Marketplace, and it was taught by Marcella Myers. And the purpose of ours was more of a study of social institutions, I would say. So we were looking at the social institutions of the United States for us, and then we partnered with De La Salle University in the Philippines and Osaka City University in Japan. And throughout the project, we first met and introduced ourselves to all the group members. After that, we paired up into separate groups and discussed what kind of topics we were going to be talking about. So mine specifically was on economic infrastructure stability. And then from that, we created projects and then presented, like Jacob said, and had time for question and answers, and then got a little bit of time to know one another as well. It was a lot of fun.
We were in groups of 2. So there were the classroom environment that I was in was very small. We only had 6 students in our environmental science class. And so we were divided into 3 groups of 2. And we met with Japanese students who were 3 groups of 3.
Yeah, for us, I had 3 people in my group, and then there were 5 Filipino students, and I think 2 or 3 Japanese students. So ours was a little bigger. Well, there are a lot, honestly. I would say I learned a lot about new cultures that I would not have originally anticipated. Like the very first thing that the other students said to me is, "Do you know what Gossip Girl is?" And they assumed because I'm from the United States that's something I enjoyed, and it was an interesting cultural experience to realize for them, I think, that we're not all the same here, just as we had to realize that with them. So that was fun. Also, I learned a lot about different socioeconomic institutions in the different countries. For example, like the Philippines does not have a lot of social institutions, but Japan has a ton. So learning the different variations between our countries, it was really fascinating for me. I really enjoyed it.
I think another really interesting aspect of COIL, at least from a perspective of an education major, is different countries have different priorities in their educational system. And it was very apparent to me when the Japanese students were giving their presentation how those differences realize themselves in the forms of our presentations. So, for instance, the Japanese students' presentations tended to be more bare bones in terms of their aesthetic, but their data and graphs were a lot more robust. Whereas Americans, we tended to put a lot of effort and time into creating the aesthetic of our presentation, making it friendly and easy to understand, while the data that we procured was not necessarily light, but not necessarily as heavy as the Japanese students either. So I think it really showed me, opened my world up to how different places in the world think, and sort of different skill sets and assets that are a product of the culture that they live in.
You want to go first?
Sure. I personally think that COIL is a great opportunity. I would recommend it to the faculty pretty highly. I think that with any sort of international collaboration, there are challenges that need to be taken into account, to be honest, but I don't think that it should be something that we should shy away from. I think that there is a tremendous amount of potential behind COIL, and so I think with proper feedback and reiteration, COIL is an extremely beneficial project to include within your curriculum.
For me, I see both sides to the argument. So I would say, like Jacob said, there are many drawbacks, such as losing time trying to figure out the logistics of sound and video quality and whatever. There's obviously going to be a time difference with all these different countries, so trying to get the perfect meeting setup time can be a struggle. But the benefits are so much more. I would say COIL was probably one of the favorite experiences I had in a course here on the Andrews campus, simply because it was different from all of my other courses. That class will always stand out in my mind simply because it was a way to put my application of learning here at Andrews into action. So I was able to take what I've been learning and show other schools and other people from other countries, not just what our government is like, not just what our economy is like, but I got to show them more about who we are as Christians and whatever else. I feel like it was a fantastic opportunity, and any teacher on this campus should be highly willing to do it because I gained so much from it.
I actually want to second what you said about when you're in COIL and you have to present your research and what you've learned from the class. It's a lot more real, and it motivates you to know your stuff a lot better. And so I think, as a professor, if you're trying to get your kids to internalize something or get them motivated to learn the content in your class, I think COIL is a great motivator because, as a student, you really want to show the other students in the other universities what you've learned, and it's a great opportunity for you to express the things that you've learned from your own experience in the course.
And nowadays, like, the mainstream way to assess students on how well they're doing in a course is like giving them final tests or projects or things like that. But doing a project such as COIL is so much more immersive, and like you have a goal at the end of the tunnel. And so I feel like it gives students more of an opportunity to be hands-on with their education, and I feel like it allows you to see a little bit more of the world without even leaving our campus.
Mm-hmm. All right, you get to go first.
No, you go first. I don't even know what to say. It was so great.
All right. So I think the online portion of COIL through my environmental science class was a good experience. But going to Japan and actually interacting with the students that I have been seeing online was a phenomenal experience. It has been, hands down, the favorite experience that I've received at this institution. And it really opened my eyes to possibilities out there. So what we did in this project was we went to a small city outside of Osaka, and we were given various locations to visit. They divided us up into 10 groups, with each group having one student from each university. So there was one student from De La Salle University in the Philippines, one student from Osaka City University in Japan, and one student from Andrews. And what the project was they sent us to a different location in the city, and each location had some sort of significance in terms of like their society or their social programs. Like for instance, there was a group that went to a old people's home. There was a group that went to a center for people with disabilities. Danny and I both went to different schools and observed their elementary school system. There was a group that went to their city hall and took a look at how they structure things on a more organizational level. And so each student from each university comes from a different culture, and as a result notices different aspects of the programs in that institution. And so what I notice going into a elementary school is going to be different from what my friend who's an an economics major in the Philippines notices, which is different from what my friend who is a philosophy major from Osaka City University notices. And so what we did at the end was we took our various perspectives and we synthesized them into one report and compared and contrasted what we noticed, how it was different, and sort of provided commentary on those differences and similarities in an attempt to maybe improve the systems that were being offered by the city.
What was the question?
Describe your experience on the educational, the COIL tour.
So for me, I will second what Jacob said. It was probably one of the highlights I've ever had in my life. And I've been to, I think this was my 10th country ever visiting. Yeah, I've been to a lot.
It was my 10th as well.
Oh
actually.
yeah?
Exactly
That's crazy.
10th,
That's crazy. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of places before, mostly in Europe and some in South America. But the culture shock in Japan was phenomenal. I was very, very shocked, but not because it's a new place. It's because of how immersive this COIL project is. And I think that's something that they did phenomenally well.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't just put us in a random city and have us be tourists. We were essentially like living the Japanese lifestyle for over 10 days. And so we are very now well cultured with what to do, what not to do. And I think the experience taught me a lot about my own viewpoints and my own failure to see beyond myself. Because I would say I have a very open worldview. I've seen a lot of things in my life, and yeah, but I would say now I've seen so much more. Getting to go to the various sites around Japan, like Kyoto, where there's like these famous shrines, and getting to see that, or getting to sit down and talk with an architect student from Osaka City University and have her tell me all about the architecture of the city, and then sitting down with an economist from De La Salle. There's so many various perspectives that we were able to observe. And like Jacob said, we were working on a project to create like cross-cultural relations, as well as like learn about the different social institutions we observed. But it was so immersive that I would say for me it was a phenomenal experience. Getting to go specifically to the elementary school was fantastic. Like I love their way of education, and getting to get a taste of that when I myself want to be a teacher gives me a perspective of what I want to introduce into my own classroom. And I feel like that's something COIL has done fantastically well. You get to take a little piece of a different culture and then insert it into your own life in a way that fits you, and that's how this cross-cultural experience works really, really well.
Yeah. I just want to second what she said about this experience. One of the most amazing things about this trip is that I did not feel like a tourist at all. Over the weekend, we went to tourist sites, and so I got to see a little bit of Osaka and Kobe while she went to Kyoto. And on the whole, though, during the week, we were taking the train every day to work. We were eating in the cafeteria. We were taking, a walk through the town, seeing the ocean and getting a real feel for the location. And so as a result, I felt a lot more in tune with Japanese society, and I think having the students there to ask questions also helped me in my understanding of their culture. Whereas if I had simply gone on a study tour of Japan, let's say, where we went to Tokyo and saw the Imperial Palace, and then Kyoto and saw the other Imperial Palace, and then went to Osaka and saw the Osaka City Castle, which we did do some of, right? But if it was solely going to the places of cultural importance, I feel like I would have a good grasp on their culture, but not their society, if that makes sense. And that was, I think, the biggest, coolest part about this trip, was being able to understand their society.
And something that I really appreciated as well about this tour, our professors did not force our interactions at all. They let us do however much interaction we wanted to. So it wasn't, guys, please go talk to the Filipino, go talk to the Japanese students. They let us be 100% integrated into them as much as we wanted to. So with that, we had the freedom to do whatever it is we liked. Some of us stayed in the same room as the other students. We were eating lunch and immersed with them. We went on day trips completely by ourselves with them to locations. We had full access to people from both of these different cultures, and in such a way that we not only created lifelong friends, but we also know so much more about their culture than we would if this experience had been forced upon us.
Yeah. I think that the friendships that I formed on this tour, even though we were only together for about 10 days or so, are truly authentic. And I have all the confidence in the world that we will keep in contact. And for the two members of my group specifically that I worked with, it's a personal goal of mine to see them again, at least once, hopefully more. But yeah, they're all like, oh, we want you to come to the Philippines, and please come back again. And it's definitely increased my connections to the world around me.
Yeah, so pretty much Japan was fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing.
If you want, me and Jacob were talking about this earlier, if you want your school to follow the motto, what is it again?
It's seek knowledge, affirm faith, change the world.
Yeah, if you want your students to live by that motto, if you want us to feel it into our core, projects such as COIL really give students an opportunity to do so. I feel so much more like that is a part of my life now.
Yeah. I would say that I've had a couple international experiences. Well, actually just one. I went on a study tour before to Europe. But throughout all of the various experiences here at Andrews, I feel like COIL has given me the most tools and empowered me the most in what I feel like to really feel like a world changer. So if this is a mantra that the school takes seriously, I think COIL is I don't want to say phenomenal again, but really truly exceptional avenue to pursue this because it really does make you feel like a global citizen, especially when you go on the tour. And it just opens your world up so much. Like, this trip for me personally has inspired me to want to teach abroad after I'm done with my education here at Andrews. And it's got me interested in the dynamics of like education between different cultures, and it's made me highly motivated to do something on a global scale in that fashion. So I personally think that COIL really fits well within the mission statement of Andrews in that regard.
Also, since Andrews is such like a culturally diverse campus, we already have so many people representing different countries, but I don't necessarily know all of them. So
Correct.
I might have a lot of Filipino friends or Japanese friends, but do I really know the fabric within their culture? No, not necessarily. And while COIL doesn't solve that solution in every sense, I feel like it gives everybody a chance to truly understand what diversity is and really feel as if, like Jacob said, they are a global citizen. They now know more about the world. Their education has been broadened. And I feel like it's a great opportunity to expand upon the fact that Andrews is already one of the most diverse campuses in the United States and world. So if you want to continue that, offer your students ways to do so, such as COIL.